Well, hey there, it's Rebekah R. Jones, and I wanted to share something with you a little bit different today. I have actually recently been working on a series of courses inside of my membership, specifically about Bible study. And so I've got like a big resource on how to use Bible study tools that are printed and that are digital online for free. And then also I've got my word study course in there and a newer course on verse study, which is my method for studying verses in the Bible. And so there are other ones that will be added as well. And in the midst of that, Thomas Nelson actually reached out to me, Thomas Nelson Bibles, and asked whether or not I could have a look at these journals that they have come up with that are just fabulous. And so I've had a look at them and I wanted to show them to you because I think it really fits in nicely with what I've been doing inside of my membership in this season. So what these are is they are a journal, they're a Bible journal. It's a journal for the Abide Bible. And that's okay because you can use this regardless of whether you have the Abide Bible or not. And so I wanted to kind of show you how this works and my thoughts on it, and then we can do a little bit of creativity together just quickly on a verse in the Bible. So what I've got here is a few of these books. Each one of the books of the Bible come in its own little book like this. And so here's Psalms and Romans, I've got John and Exodus. So they sent me a range of these. So I'll just flip through them. You can see a bunch of the text on the left and then placed to right with some faint lines on the right. Now, in my experience, a lot of folks who don't necessarily understand how to study scripture just open the Bible, find a scripture, and then start creating artwork. And my goal inside of my membership has been to teach you the simple, easy methods of Bible study, but not just so that you can go in depth and become full of head knowledge, but so that you can encounter our living God in scripture. And it's really interesting that these journals are actually created with the intent of helping you to engage with scripture so that you can, as they put it here, it's designed to help you encounter the voice and presence of God in the different books of the Bible. And I wholeheartedly agree that that is an incredible, important part of our relationship with God, is that we encounter him in the Word. So I wanted to show these to you because as you go through the Bible, it can be difficult, I think, for some to actually create in the Word. It can be difficult for some to know, where do I take notes when we've got a margin this size or not at all in one of your study Bibles. So you could actually decide that you're going to study your way through a certain section of the Bible, or you could just buy all of these. They come in individual sets, so like 1st and 2nd Corinthians would come together, but then, you know, John would come by itself, or Exodus might come by itself, or that sort of thing. But you can also buy them in sets. So if I just pop open here, you can see they come in Old Testament sets. So there's the law, which is Genesis through Deuteronomy, the writings, Joshua to Song of Solomon, and the Old Testament prophets, Isaiah to Malachi. And then in the New Testament, you've got the Gospels and Acts, and then the epistles and Revelation, which is Romans through Revelation. And then you've got the complete Bible set, which is all of these sets, and you could just buy the whole thing together, or you can buy them all individually. So say that you wanted to just focus on Psalms or Proverbs. So this is the book of Psalms. It's just filled with the whole Bible here on the left. And I know I'll get questions about the translation. So if you go in the front here, you'll see it's the NET, which means New English Translation. It's a really interesting translation that was a real labor of love, and they talk a bit about how they came to that translation here at the beginning so that you can understand it. I think it's really interesting. They really brought together many people to have a real transparent look at translating the Bible, and it gives you some fresh perspective. So when you look at a certain scripture that you typically would look at in one translation that you're used to, sometimes it's good to look at it in a different translation just to get your head around it. But even if you don't want to study in this, what you can do, here's a little thing about the book at the beginning. What you could do is use this as your journal to write down the thoughts as you go through and study in the Bible of your choice. And you could just reference this here to see this particular section of scripture on that particular translation, the NAT here, or not, but you can underline, make notes, all you want, and just mark this up and really own this space, and then do some more thoughtful writing here. And they've got some prompts along the way throughout here that help you to journal, to contemplate, to picture it, to do different things here. And they tell you what you could do to really engage with scripture and make this a meaningful way for you to connect with God. And I think that's fabulous. When you have done that, you might actually find, I know a lot of you say that you're nervous about creating in your actual Bible. This is the book of Psalms, but it doesn't feel like your whole Bible that you're creating in. And the pages are actually really thick. It's good, thick paper here. So I would say that this might be a really great way for you to have a way to create. What I will say is that this is not lay flat binding. So search on my channel for how to properly break in a Bible. There is a technique for that, and that's going to help you to get the most out of being in a particular book and to get everything ready for you to work on it without hurting the binding. So once you feel ready to do that, then you can pop into a certain section of scripture and really begin to engage with it. And because we are creatives and we want to create in the Word, then there might be a different way that you handle this. So I'm going to show you through in here. I'm going to go to a section here in Psalms 46 right here and do this in a minute, but I wanted to show you a couple of things first. So you can see that they've got this gold foiling on these paperback books. There's gold foiling and it goes along with that particular book of the Bible, so some sort of poignant thing. So you may be able to make out what each of those things are. Here's John, and this is at the cross, and Exodus, there's a burning bush here. There's different things for each one of them. So that is quite beautiful, I think. And I think perhaps this just doesn't feel so precious that you can't just engage with it, which I think is an important thing. So let's say that you wanted to create on this and you don't want all these lines, then what you could do, and I will say it's a little bit tricky if these want to not stay open, so you can grab another book like this and sort of give it a reason to stay put, or you could get yourself a little clip to clip a few of these pages together, which I can do right here. So I would just get a couple of these and pop this on, and then it will stay put just like this. So there's ways that you can get around the fact that this isn't necessarily a lay flat binding. I think that you would still want to put something along the outside, but here you've got it all open here. And what I'm thinking is you can use white. I like the Latex Professional. You always want to use a matte finish, a heavy body acrylic paint to do this with, but you can basically make your lines disappear. Just get an old card of some sort like this, put a little bit of white on it, and then go over this, and you'll see that it really kind of knocks back the color. And after I'm done with this prompt, I can really make it melt into the design. So I don't know how those who actually created this might feel about it, but I think it's really, the point here is that they wanted you to get in the Word and create with it. So the Abide Bible that this is connected with is really interesting. And these are actually called the Abide Bible Journal because it's a journal for the Abide Bible. But if you want, you could do Bible journaling in here, which is what I'm hoping to show you. So let's say that we're done with white and we've kind of knocked that back as much as we want to. I'm just going to grab a baby wipe and wipe off my card here so that I have it ready to use with another color, and get myself some Aqua. And again, this is a matte finish, heavy body acrylic paint. And you could use a Dina Wakley Media heavy body paint or some of this Liquitex Pro, which is my favorite. And I think Illustrated Faith have some as well. So now I can add some color in here. And see, I'm not actually covering the scripture because the scripture is on the adjacent page over here. I'll just get that back over there. And so I am able to just add in some color, and I'm just swiping it over here. It's nothing super precious, and I'm not trying to make a big deal out of this. I'm just trying to get some color down and to have fun. So you can see how easy this is to really make this make sense and have some pretty color. And once I'm basically about done with it, then I'm going to, again, clean this off so that I don't have paint hanging about, and then I will be ready to use a pen in here. And you could wait for just like 5 minutes for this to dry, or you can go over it with a heat tool. It feels slightly sticky. You can see it's a little sticky here. And so I wouldn't necessarily go over it, but I'm not totally ready to create in here because I want to make sure that I let it dry and then I'll come back. So I'm gonna let this sit for a couple minutes and then I'll be right back. Okay, so this is nice and dry. Nothing left on there except for my hand, and it's all looking pretty good here. So what I'm gonna do is just grab some pens and look at my options for coloring. And so what I'm actually doing is I want to create some thoughts here, and I'm looking at the section of scripture here in Psalm 46. He says in verse 10, he says, "Stop your striving and recognize that I am God. I will be exalted over the nations. I will be exalted over the earth. The Lord of heaven's armies is on our side. The God of Jacob is our stronghold." So when we're feeling like, you know, life is a little bit tough, if you read through this whole chapter 46, it feels a bit like what this season has been like in history for us. And yet God will be exalted. He will have the last say. And so you can, with confidence, know that he is with you. So if we want to create something here, I would use a pen with a thick nib tip on the end, which means that it's not going to be clogged by anything you've got here very easily. Now that I've let this totally dry, I actually put a heat tool on this a little bit for a moment because I was feeling impatient. And what I want to do is create something for this right here. But before I do that, I actually want to highlight this. So I've got a couple of colors here, and I just want to show you here, when you look at a color wheel, this right here, this kind of aqua blue green, if I look across the color wheel, I've got sort of a reddish orange color, something sort of across the wheel. If I use that next to it, then it's going to kind of give me a pop of color, which is fun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to highlight, and this color here is, this is the Faber-Castell Pitt pen, and it's Phthalo green, Phthalo. Phthalo green, and this is a brush tip. And so I'm just going to highlight this section of scripture, and it's going to really match what I have over here with this Aqua, which is fabulous. And I want that sailor. And then I'm going to get this one here, which is orange glaze. And I'm going to actually go around it, kind of messy like, and just get a border over here. So I think that's fine. I'm not even going to mess around anymore with that, but just for the fun of it, I'll put a little arrow here to remind myself to pay attention to this. And then I'm going to get in here and say recognize. So I've got all of this space here. So I'm just going to use the space I have, and I'm not going to do anything super fancy here. Recognize. Gotta pay attention so you don't end up spelling incorrectly. Recognize. And say, He is God. And will be exalted. You see, you don't actually need to have fancy lettering or anything like that to spend time in the Word creating. And what I've done is I've actually engaged with the scripture. I've understood what it's saying. And if you want to really study into this, then I will put some tools and some links that Thomas Nelson have for this particular set of journals. And I'll also put a link to my membership so that you can go and check all those resources out. And I would really encourage you, take time to engage with scripture, understand what it's saying, what it means, and be unafraid to learn more about scripture, how it works, what it's saying to you, so that you can actually get the most out of your time in the Word rather than just create. Make sure that you're studying and you understand scripture and its context and what it's trying to say to you. So in your moment where you might feel like, I'm not even sure if God's got this, remember, God will be exalted. He has this. He has you. It's going to be okay. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this. I would definitely say that this is a really fun way for you to create in the Word. You do not need art skills to do this. You can just scrape some paint in here, make sure it's matte finish, and go in with your pens. Make sure this is nice and dry before you do, and have some fun highlighting and connecting with scripture, and make some notes. I've got some note space here. I can just add in my notes for this and date it so I remember what it was that was speaking to me about the scripture. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next video.